that married four massive Talmidei Chacham. So two of them was Rabbi Zalman and Mark Epstein, who's the Shiva of Hebron during the 29 riots. And they both have a Yosy the same day. And today is also the Yosy of Moshe Zolti. So Moshe Zolti is someone who we all have a Korsa Tov to, because he was really one of the main supporters of our shul. And most of the benefits that our shul has was because Moshe Zolti pushed for it and paid for it. So we have a Korsa Tov to him, and he should continue to be a Mel Yosher on Arbish Medrash and on all of Yisrael. The Neshama should have an Aliyah. So we were discussing the sugya of Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar, and the last thing we learned yesterday was that Rabbi Vo said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar is Chayiv, and he wanted to, and the Gemara said he knew it from something that Rabbi Yochanan said Lagabe Hilchos Meila, that when you sit under a beam of hektish and you have enough from it because it shades you, that causes Meila. So you see that even if it was loy chaser, when you're sitting under the shade of a beam, the beam doesn't lose any value. Nevertheless, you're chayiv on meila. The Gemara answered, you can't be arrived from hektish hedjit. Hektish has a different set of rules. For instance, hektish midas, which means that even if it's hektish shaloi midas is like hedjit midas, and Tosha speaks out elanira midas, elanira hedjit midas domi kloimar. The dash china ikosh lo yehena adam beloy meila. By hektish, the rules are more strict, and a person cannot have a no from hektish without it being considered meila. Even though be dine hedjit, you might say that a person wouldn't be chai. So we're going to move on with this shaila because there was a lot of controversy throughout the generations as to what is the halacha of Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar. So the Gemara tells us, Shalach lei Rab Abba bar Zabda lemari bar Mar. Boy, my name Rav Huna, be so kind, and ask Rav Huna, Hador b'chotz chaver shaloi midaitoi, tzorich lahalos l'schar oiloi. Ask him this shaila that we have about Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar. Adahachi. By the time they got to Rav Huna, it was too late. Noch nafti Rav Huna. So they asked Rav Huna's son, Amalei Rabba bar Rav Huna, Hachi Amar Abba, Mori Mishmei Rav. This is what my father Rav Huna used to say over in the name of Rav. Einoi tzorich lahalos l'schar. Meaning, Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar is potter. But in the same breath, Rav Huna said another halacha in the name of Rav, which contradicts this halacha we just said about Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar. What was the case? What if someone rented a house from Ruvain? Who does he pay? Shimon. He's got to pay Shimon. Shimon, you're renting a house from Ruvain. What does Shimon have to do with this? What if someone wanted to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge? He said, pay me rent to live in this property. When really it wasn't his property. He was a scam artist. It was somebody else's property. So the halacha is, and then you find out, who do you pay rent to? You pay rent to the original owner, to Shimon. Thank you so much. You have to pay him. That's a stira. Because this is a case of Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar. Shimon had no interest in renting anything out. He didn't even know it was rented out. So why would you have to pay Shimon? Why is that not a case of Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar? The Gemara, the teretz is how the kaima la'agra, how the like kaima la'agra. Where do you say Zen Nehenev Zelech Chosar? That's if it's a property he didn't want to rent out. But Shimon, in fact, was looking to rent out his property. And since Shimon was looking to rent out his property, even though he wasn't aware that you used it, you're still going to be chai. I'm sorry?
Are you using it?
Yeah, I am, right?
No, it's okay to move it back on.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have that blocking it. Sure. If it's blocking, we'll take it blocked though. Okay, Gavalti. Thank you so much for playing. Okay. So this is Gavalti, and this is a realistic case. Shmuel, did you ever have a case where somebody rented out his friend's property? I will tell you a story. My daughter has a friend who, in Eretz Yisrael, her grandfather had a very, very expensive apartment in Rechavia, and one day her brother and some of his friends decide that they're going to stay in the apartment for Shabbos, and they go to the apartment, and there's a family staying there. And they ask them, "What are you doing here?" What are you doing here? What am I? What are you doing here? What do you mean? We rented this apartment. We rented the apartment for the week. So how could you rent the apartment? It's my grandfather's apartment. I rented the apartment. Turned out that the fellow that this guy hired to take care of his apartment was renting it out to make money on the side. This is Barry Rachman's apartment. This is Barry Rachman's apartment. So the Eichel Koenig wants to go there for Shabbos. He walks in, there's a family there. Turns out that the person who Barry Rachman was paying to take care of his apartment was renting it out, making money on the side. So that's mama's case. So the law is he has to pay Shimon, but that wasn't Kaim al-Agra. It wasn't Kaim al-Agra, but he had to pay Shimon.
One time, someone else, we got a call one day that apartment 1503, the fridge isn't working. 1503 is working, there's 9 rented. That super was, yeah, these parts coming over from Rwanda and from.
This sounds like much room there.
They never had, what's my room there? They never had a bank account. They never heard of a bank account. Right? But it was cash. So the super was taking cash, using the cash, and wasn't even reporting the apartment rented.
Oh no, because there's a story in Abba Shmesh where the partner was doing that. Okay, because the partner got ripped off, came over to me with kindness. Why I didn't tell him that his shutuf was a crook? Because I had prior experience with his shutuf. Okay, so Gemara. Id Marnami. Amar Rab Chia bar Abad. Amar Rab. Amar lo Amar Rab Chia bar Abad. Amar Rab Huna. Hador b'chotcha chaveroi shaloi midaitoi. If someone lives in his friend's chotcha shaloi midaitoi, meaning again Zen Henem Zalei Chazer, einoi tzarich lahalo shloi schar. And then in the same breath, if you rent a house from the city because the city took it over, you have to pay the bailim. What do they have to do with this transaction? That's exactly what they asked the Kohen kids. Who are you? Right? If it turns out that it has bailim, so this is mamash of in the same breath, you're saying Zen Henem Zalei Chaser is Potter, and then you're saying Chayiv. If it was a department, a property that was going to be rented out, so that in Zen Henem Zalei Chaser, that's why it's Chayiv. But if it's a department that wasn't going to be rented out anyway, then it's Zen Henem Zalei Chaser. Amarav Shchoira, Amarav Funa, Amarav. Hador b'chatzer chaver shalom midayto. You squat in your friend's chatzar. You don't have to pay him. Why don't you have to pay him? Because you're benefiting him. It's a benefit for the owner of the property that you should squat in his property. What? It's exactly what mother-in-law. She always claims that, I'm helping. I'm thinking of exactly that. Because it says, and either way, what it means is if a place is vacant, the shadim are going to destroy it. But either it means Ushi is the name of the shade. Yukashar, if it's vacant, what happens is the shadim end up making a rave in your apartment. And they call all their friends and they have a wild party and they bust up your apartment. The other pshat is Ushi Yukashar is emptiness causes this damage because shadim will come. So the sum total of it, both pshatim, is that shadim destroy your apartment if it's empty. The question really is the name of the shade Shaya? Is Shaya the shade? Okay, we always do Shaya the liberal. I'm not for Shaya the shade. So I'll call upon him. The way they damage it, Rashi says, is because if the apartment's empty, they have a major rave there, and of course that causes a lot of damage. A rave is a party where the attack occurred there at a rave. A rave is a party where a lot of illegal activity occurs, like drug use and shikris, and it's pretty much a party that has in it avodah zoyer gilerai shvichas dam. And because of that, they never announced the location of a rave until an hour before. So all the people who apply to come, they don't know where it's going to be until an hour before, so that no police know about it. It's very last minute. And that's how you see what an inside job this was, because Hamas knew where this was going to be, even though the own partygoers didn't know till an hour or two before.
There was surprise.
I'm sorry? It doesn't seem so because they knew all the roads and they knew how to block the roads, but they knew the area. So I don't know. So Omar Bar Vashi, I actually once saw this shade. Umangach Kitura, and it stoiches like a wild bull, like a wild ox. So this opens up a whole big shaila, because the Rambam says that there's no such thing as shadim. The whole thing is nicht gesteigert, nicht geflogen. And the Vilna Gaon screams at the Rambam and says, Enzu ela philosophy hatasai. The Rambam's philosophy hat them fafirt. And there's a big machlokes about it that Chaim Tzvi likes to discuss. But Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky wants to make a little bit of peace between the Rambam and the Gra, and he says that Avada in the times of the Gemara is emes, because the Gra screams, how could the Rambam say that the Gemara is figurative? The Gemara is literal. So Rabbi Yaakov Avada was literal, but that was in the times of the Gemara. But things changed. We know, as we used to have Nevuah, so Zelu Umazeh, in order that we should have Bechira, the taiva for Yetzirah was much stronger. Once the Rebbeinu Shem took away the taiva for Yetzirah, the Rebbeinu Shem took away Nevuah. So when we had all these types of things going on, that was when we were on the higher Madrega. And as our Madrega is dropping off, these types of things also we don't have access to anymore. So that's what Rabbi Yaakov comments on this shaila between the Rambam and the Gra. The problem with that is the Rambam seems to say that not that nowadays it's not like that anymore. It was never like that. Okay, so Gemara weiter. Rabbi Yosef Omar, forget the shadim, Beisa Misvi Yosef. It's better for a house if someone's living there. Why? Because things break in the house, and you wouldn't know about it. There could be a leak. There could be other problems in the house, cracking, humidity, moisture. If someone's there, it will be reported. He'll get a call from 1530 that there's a broken fridge in 1530, and he'll be able to fix it. So there's a benefit to the landlord, even if he's not getting paid, that someone should live there to make sure that everything's okay. Maybe now, what's the difference between the benefit of preventing shadim or the benefit of avoiding deterioration due to neglect? What if he used his apartment, but he used it as a storage facility? So therefore, he's still there from time to time, and therefore there won't be shadim there, but there will be no one living there to be able to see what needs to be taken care of. As Rashi says, the kamshtamish boy balabais betzivi b'tivna, he's using it for wood and straw as a storage house. So and this squatter went and parked himself into this apartment. There's no problem with shadim because it's being used. He's using it for his storage facility. But that's not called living there. He helped because he's making sure that it stays in a good state of repair. Gavra, there was this fellow, the Bana Apadna, he built himself a beautiful palace, Akilkalta the Yasmi, on an ashba, on a garbage dump that Yisayim had. So that property is going to be fallow, it's useless. So therefore, why not build there? And the Yisayim aren't losing anything. What did Rab Nachman do? He put his foot down. Agme Rab Nachman lapadne minei. He seized the entire house from this rich guy because he was taking advantage and building it rent-free on the property of the Yisayim. Are you going to tell me that Rab Nachman owes to pay? No. There used to be gypsies that would camp out in that ashba. They would pay a little bit. Now that you built your apartment there, these people moved on, and now the little bit of rent that these Yisayim were getting, they were no longer getting. So you're being master the Yisayim. Therefore, Amalei Rab Nachman told this rich guy, Zil paisinu liyasme, you have to pay off the Yisayim because the factors are losing a little bit. I'm not saying I got to pay them a full, but at least pay them what they would have otherwise received from the Karmenoi. And he totally ignored Rab Nachman. So Rab Nachman said, oh yeah, you're going to be a knacker? I'll teach you a lesson. Agbe Rab Nachman lapad nemine. So he seized the property, and then he says, now you're going to pay full pot. So this is already a little bit of a complex sugya. And in order to start the sugya, let's go back and see what the Mishnah says about this halacha, so that we'll get a better understanding of what the Gemara's analysis is. The Zok Tehelig Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us, Ketad Mishalemis Mashenehenes. We learned that an animal that damages, that does shein b'reshus harabim, which is not where there's a chiyuv, it says ubir b'stei acher, but not in, but dafke b'reshus hanizik, is where shein is chayiv. There's no chiyuv shein. So what do you pay? In the henis mishalem is mashan. At least you pay what you benefited. You don't pay damages, but you pay what you benefited, and this is what led to the whole shaila of zen henim zalichaser. You're benefiting it to at least pay. Ketzat, what are the case? When would this be relevant? So the animal's walking down the street, and the animal ate food that's on the street. There's no chiyuv shein. It's for shus harabim. Mishalem is mashen. But what if the animal ate mitzidei rechava? He ate from the side of the road, which is not considered reshus harabim because people keep things there. Mishalem is mashe hezika. Now, what does this mean? Mishalem is mashe hezika. Rashi says something that's very unusual because the pshat of how we would understand it, which is how Tosfos is going to understand it, is since it's at the side, even though it's not mamish reshus hayochid, but it's not reshus harabim, since people can keep their stuff there, it's considered reshus hanizik, and therefore you're chayav for shein. Right? Is that how you would understand the Mishnah without any other shulchan? Right? Pshat doesn't make sense. No. Why are you paying? Because it's the side of the road. Rashi says something very interesting. It's not changed. It's still considered reshus harabim. The side of the road is still not private property. So you know why you're paying? It's Karen. Because it's not normal when an animal's walking to go to the side and take food. Why isn't it normal? It sees food, right? But that's what Rashi says. And therefore you pay Karen tam chatzi nezek umud nezek shalom. It's a big chiddush in Rashi, right? And Tosfos asks another kasha. Chatzi nezek sounds like, nezek, paying my damage. Chatzi nezek is probably less than mashen henis. So if I'm the owner of the parish, I'll say, forget nezek, forget Karen, just give me mashen henis. So it's mashma that it's even less. So those are the problems that Tosfos has with Rashi. A is mashe zika is mashma nezek sholem, not chatzi nezek. And B is why is that called Karen? Why isn't it normal if an animal sees food that's going to turn to the side and take food? Why should that be Karen? But this is Rashi. We're going to learn the sugya with Tosfos' pshat, but Rashi says this, so we have to point it out. Because more weiter. How about me pesach chanus? Now, the way those stores used to work is they would be like holes in the wall, like you see, that scroll in the car door. But they would have a big. Nowadays they have like a big tris that rolls up, steel tris to lock. But in those days, what they used to do with that tris is they would fold it out, put legs under the end of it, and it would act as a table for them, where they would fold it down. Like the top half, let's say, would fold down, it would have legs, and that would be like the table that they would work on, and that would stick out a little bit into the public thoroughfare. It would stick out a little bit. So mipesach chanus, which means, Tosfos explains, in that area where the window shade folds down, so it's a couple of feet in front of the guy's store, that's called reshus harabim, and therefore mishalem es mashen henis. It's not considered shein because it's not considered reshus hayochid. But if the animal came into the chanus and ate there, then it's pure shein. Mishalem es mashazi. So now let's see how the Gemara analyzes this. Zok the heilige Gemara. Zok the heilige Gemara. Omer Rav. When do you say that he's chayiv for eating? B'tzidei reshus harabim ubimachzeres. Rashi says, what does machzeres mean? It means he doesn't walk onto the side of the reshus harabim. He moves his head to the side. Rashi says, Omer Rav machzeres roisha meirachva l'tzidei shel rachva. He turns his head from the road, so even though his body is standing in the reshus harabim, he moves his head off to the side and he eats off the side. That would be considered shame. For achla pairs, the mishalamish masizika afalgav the kula kaima barachva, even though the animal physically is standing in the reshus harabim. So again, Rashi learns because of Karen, as we saw in the Mishnah. But Tosfos learns that's considered that the animal ate b'chatzar and nizik, and therefore it's chayiv 100% because of shame. Ushmul Amar afilu machzeres nami potter. And Rashi says why? If the animal itself is in the reshus harabim, that's not considered shein b'reshus hayochid. Rashi is working with the svara that it's Karen, so he says the orchahu, it's the derech lachzer roisha. So since the derech is not Karen, and therefore it's Shein Rishus Harabim. It's Shein Rishus Harabim, even though the food is in the Rishus HaYochid, and it's only the animal's head that's in the Rishus HaYochid, that's not called Shein. Okay. Ula Shmuel fragt the Gemara, Heichi Mishkachas lo de Mechayiv. How is Shmuel going to understand our Mishnah when our Mishnah says that if it's at the side of the road and the animal eats it, you pay Masha Hizik, not Masha Nanis? So Shmuel is going to learn going to Shavkasa l'Rachva, but Ozla v'Kama b'Tzidei Rachva. When the animal literally walked off the road onto the sidewalk is usually a raised area. It's not on the same level of the road, and it walks up there. So now the whole animal is in this area, which we're going to say has a status of Rishus HaYochid, Legabe the din of Shein, and that's where it will be Chai. There are those who quote the same Achlokas Rav and Shmuel, but they weren't referring to our Mishnah. Rather, they were having an independent conversation about when someone's chayiv. Machzeres, what if an animal's walking down the street and it sticks its head into the tzidei Rishus Harabim to eat? Rav Omer chayeves, that would be Shein. Ushmuel Omer Ptura, and Shmuel says it will be Ptura because the animal's in the Rishus Harabim. He's not. We need to find a way for Shmuel to explain the Mishnah. The Shmuel had to say that when the Mishnah says you're chayiv, it must be that the whole animal went into the side. That's how Shmuel would have to explain our Mishnah. Even though they're not discussing the Mishnah, but it's exactly the same Shita, they just happen not to have been discussing Shad in the Mishnah at the time. So far, so good. We have a pshat according to Shmuel, we have a pshat according to Rav, in what it means Rishus Harabim versus Tzidei Rishus Harabim. Rav holds, even if the animal is in the Rishus Harabim and he leads his head over, that's good enough to be considered Shein, even though his body is in the Rishus Harabim. Shmuel says his whole body has to be in the Rishus HaYochid, or in the side of the Rishus Harabim, that we're giving a status of Rishus HaYochid related to the Hezek of Shein. Mosiv Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak. Now let's see how Rav and Shmuel learn the next clause of the Mishnah, Mi Pesach HaChanus. So we know the Mishnah says in Pesach HaChanus, Mishalemes Masha Nehenes. So that means we consider that Rishus Harabim. There's no way anybody will say that the animal walked into that small area. An animal can never fit there. So it has to be that the animal is walking by and stuck its head in. So it must be that the animal just stuck his head into that area of the store and ate there. And what does the Mishnah say? Masha Nehemis. You only pay Masha Nehemis. Even though the body is in Rishus Harabim and the head is in the Rishus HaYochid, you pay Masha Nehemis. That fits in very, very well according to Shmuel, who holds Machzeres as Potter. But according to Rav, who holds Machzeres is considered Shein, you look at where the head is and where the property and where the food is. Why is it Masha Nehemis? It should pay Masha Zika. So it says there in the Mishnah, Masha Nehemis in, Masha Zika loy. So how is Rav going to understand this? Zakti Gemara, who moisav law, who mefark law, the kaima bekerins of his. You know why he's Potter? Because the animal didn't stick his head off to the side. See, if the animal diverts and sticks its head off to the side, there Ralph holds the animal had no business sticking its head into the side. It's a Rishus HaYochid, it's a protected area. The animal sticks his head into the side. That's as if he trespassed into the Rishus HaYochid to eat. But here, the animal never stuck his head to the side. What happened was, if you look at the little picture here, either Rashi's picture or Tosfos' picture, it doesn't really matter. If the animal is coming from the Mavi Gadol and he's headed into the Mavi Katan and he turns the corner, when he hits that little area jutting out, he's hitting it head on. He's not walking by it. So therefore, he doesn't have to bend his head. Walking straight, that's not called an infringement on somebody else's property. An animal's allowed to walk straight. And therefore, Rav says that this is considered Rishus Harabim, and therefore he will be Potter for Shein. Tosfos has a different version, but very similar. Again, you're turning the corner, and as he's turning the corner, and it's sticking out from this corner, he's going to hit it. There are two examples of how an animal will be able to eat from this store without actually bending his head, because for that moment, he's taking it head on. So Tosfos asks an obvious kasha. Why do we need such a case where he's turning the corner? why not learn that the case is that the guy's store is sticking out too much, and he's walking along the side, and he bumps head on into the store? Simple question. So Tosfos answers very simply. Tosfos says as follows. Tosfos says, "Mi pesach hanus." This is not the Tosfos I'm looking for, but we'll learn this Tosfos anyway. Hein trisei achanuyos. Those are the shades that cover the store when they're closed. They would fold it down and it would act as the table where they did their business. That's where they would put their wares. The Gemara didn't want to tell it on where he's walking straight, there's no turns, but it happened to be this chanus stuck out further than typical, and therefore the moide Rav the potter, their Rav would be moide that for sure it would be potter. That's really infringing on the Rishus HaRabim. That's like someone setting up his store. That's like somebody opening up a toll booth on the 401. It's a good income, but he doesn't have the right to do it. So therefore, that's like if you wanted to open up a business and you opened up a toll booth on the 401. You'd make Shana Panusa, but they would throw you off it very quickly. Okay, so that's why the Gemara didn't want to suggest that. But around the corner, even if it's not ticking that much, as you turn the corner, you are going to bump into it head on. Gewaltig. Zog the Gemara weiter. On Ikudami, there are those who actually have a different approach. And it's funny because in the last approach, and this is what the Pnei Shua points out, I didn't have a chance to go through them fully to get to understand why, but in the last approach that we just learned, it seems like Rav is more machmer, right? Rav holds if you just stick your head into the side, you'll have to pay full puff. That's called shame. And Shmuel said no, unless the whole animal is in Rosh Hashanah, it's not considered shame. But in this Ikudami, Shmuel is going to be more inclined to be mechayev. Ikudami machzeres kula amaloi pligi dechayeves. Everybody agrees if the animal's in the Rishus HaRabim and it sticks its head into the side of the Rishus HaRabim and eats, that is considered shame, and you pay in full. Ki pligi, where is there a machlokes? B'mekatze mokoim mershus Rishus HaRabim. In the olden days, people built their fence, their property, their fence, their wall right on the property line. They built it right on the property line. Not only that, in front of it they would put bumpy things so no one should walk right up against their wall and damage it. They actually wanted to keep people a little bit away from their wall. But this fellow decided, you know what? I'm going to bring my wall in. I'm sorry? Oh. Yeah. So if someone actually pulled his wall, let's say 6 feet back, now that was still his property. He wasn't mafkir his property, but he figures I'm going to pull my wall back and I'm going to use that area to dry out Paris. But since he pulled his wall back, advice to choice, he's not so makbid that people from Rishus HaRabim should stick their nose in there because if he was so makbid, he would have made his wall right on the property line. So because there's a bigger argument to say that you shouldn't be chayiv on chain, because the fact of the matter is, I'm letting people walk there. And this would be the machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Amarav, lo shanu, you don't say that you're chayiv to pay full nezek, and it's considered chain. Elamachzeres. In a standard case where an animal's walking down the street and it sticks its head off to the side to eat from the tzidei Rishus HaRabim. But if the property line goes in and there's a whole area there that the Baal is not so makbid on letting people walk there, Petura, that would no longer be mechayifim for shame. Ushmul Amar afilu mekatze mokem meshusay l'shus harabim chayeves. So the Pnei Shua points out here in this version, actually Shmuel is more makbid to be mechayev. So Zog to Gemara, let's suggest lema b'bar b'shusay kamifim. Let's say this machlokes should be totally in. Do I have a right to do something in my property, even though it's going to potentially pose a problem to the public walking by? Rav de Omar Potter. Rav holds that if I have a bor in my rishus, so let's say that little area is my rishus, and I dig a bor there, and let's say I'm mafkir the property around my bor, but the bor itself I'm keeping as my property. So it's private property. I'm not mechuyev. Why should I be mechuyev if you come to my private property and fall in? So Rav holds therefore I'm potter. I'm sorry. Rav would hold it's chayiv, meaning I have to be concerned that the public's going to walk there. If I have to be concerned that the public's going to walk there, and that's why I'm chayiv for my bar, it makes sense that if an animal ate from Paris there, the animal wouldn't have to eat because you see, I have no right to put dangers there, meaning I have to assume there's going to be a rabbim there. So Rav the Amar Potter, in our case, the animal doesn't have to pay, meaning it's considered like it's a Rishus HaRabim, and therefore there's no Chiv of Shein, Kasavar Bar Rishus Chayiv. He'll hold that I wasn't allowed to put that there, and therefore I would be mechuyev for it if it hurt somebody. So naturally, if it's going to hurt somebody and I'll be mechuyev for it, surely he doesn't have to pay me if he eats it. And Rashi's going to quote a Gemara that says, if I put something that's going to endanger the public, like a Bor Rishus HaRabim, and then somebody comes along and eats it and damages it, I can't sue him. He can't come after me. I can't come after him for the money. I had no right to put it there. So it will be the same thing. Since I had no right to put it there, I can't go on him to pay for it if he eats it. Shmuel Damar Chayiv, and Shmuel holds that I could ask him for damages. He must hold that Bar B'Shusay is potter, and therefore it's not considered like I'm putting a mekalkel into Rishus HaRabim. Let's see Rashi. Lema Rav Shmuel, who have a machlokes b'chofer Bar B'Shusay v'hifker Rishusay v'lohifker Bar Kamim. I dug a bar in my rishus. I was mafker the rishus around the bar to the public, but the bar is still my rishus hayachid kamiv. Uve pluked Rabbi Shmuel over Rabbi Kiva. There's actually a machlokes tanoim about it. The pligibal kamam b'perek shor shenugah chazapara. The Rav Savar Chayiv. Rav holds you'd be chayiv if an animal got damaged in your bar. Umishum hachi petura hach behema. Therefore, the behema who ate the payers there will be potter to pay. This genius who put his payers out in a place where he could have hurt somebody. That's like placing a bar b'Rishus HaRabim. Had the animal not eaten these pears, but the animal would have slipped and died, he would have been chayiv to pay in full, even though it's his rishus. Because he was mafker the rishus around it. Therefore, clearly, he wasn't allowed to place his pears there. The halach is if you place a bar b'Rishus HaRabim and it causes damage, you must pay. But if you place a bar b'Rishus HaRabim and I go in and seize it, I'm allowed to keep it. So therefore, the animal that ate those pears that weren't allowed to be there in the first place, of course, will not have to pay for it. But Shmuel's over Potter, because it's not called the bar b'Rishus HaRabim, it's my Rishus HaYachid, and I'm not mechuyev if I place something there, meaning I had a right to place these pears there. Will be chayev. The person had every right to place his pears there. Rishus HaRabim nami lo hava. It's not a Rishus HaRabim. She'ein zeder chilucha. That's not in the normal path of where animals walk, and therefore he's chayev. So the Gemara wants to suggest, which is a kasha, how could Rav and Shmuel be arguing in a machlokes tanoim? So let's say the alma bar b'Rishusay potter. Let's say everybody agrees that the bar b'Rishusay would be potter. Nevertheless, here there is still an option to say that he should be potter to pay. B'shayni acha, the omer, the owner of the Paris will say lav kol kiminach. Even though bar b'Rishusay is potter, the owner of the animal could say, you might have a right to put your pears there, but I still don't have to pay you if my animal ate it. Because the owner of the animal could say, Lav kol kaminach, the makravis lula peirosach, l'shus harabim, umachayavas lula tiroi. You had no right to put your pears so close to the Rishus harabim, and because of that, cause it that my animal should get it. You put something there that my animal was going to go for. Memela, a bar, it's not attracting my animal, but you're putting pears there. You had no right to do that, and now my animal is going to be attracted to it. A Shmuel can say, who hold that you're chayiv to pay for the pears, could say bar b'Rishusay chayiv. If you had a bar there, in fact, that you would be chayiv, which meaning you didn't have a right to place it there, and even though you didn't have a right to place it there, still the animal that ate it would be chayiv. Why? The bishtam a bar ikala meimer lava daitei. You know why you're mechuyev to pay for my animal if you dug a bar and my animal fell into it? how's my animal supposed to see a hole around? It's harder to see. It's concealed. You don't necessarily notice that. So that's why you're chayav to pay for my animal. Elaperis, mikal memer lava daite. How could you claim from me that I damaged your animal? There's a pile of pears there. Hachazalu. You should have seen it. So I'm not as liable for damages for pears that I placed there as I would have been if I would have dug a hole that's not so easily seen. So therefore, the machlokes as to whether or not there's a chiyuv for a bar would have no impact on whether or not an animal who ate these pears would be mechuyev, because there are svars to separate the two halachos. Zoktimor lema machzeres tanoi. We have a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. If an animal's in the Rishus Rabbim and sticks its head in the Rishus Yochid, is there a chiyuv to pay for the pears that were eaten? Shmuel holds there's no chiyuv to pay. Rav holds there is a chiyuv to pay. Let's suggest this is a machlokes tanoi. The Tanya we looked at Brisa. That's what our Mishnah says, but the Brisa is going to be more detailed. These are the words of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda. Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Lezer, ein darka lechel ela lahal. The derech for the animal is not to eat, only to walk. So what in the world is Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Lezer saying, and what are they commenting on? So the Gemara first suggests that maybe Rabbi Yosy is commenting on the first halach. It says, so Rabbi Yosy is commenting that it's ein darka lahalach, meaning, one second, I want to make sure I'm not making a mistake. I apologize. The Hava meaning of the Gemara is that Rabbi Yosy is going on the second halacha. He's going on the second halacha mitzider achava. It says if the animal ate mitzider achava mishalom mishmasha zika, and on that Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Elazar commented, it's not the derech to walk, it's not the derech to eat there, to walk by. So that also would support that since it's not the derech for the animal to do that, and the animal did that, it should be chayv to pay masha. So Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Elazar seem to be agreeing with the shita of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda that mitzida herachava you pay masha zika because the animal had no business sticking its head in. Rabbi Yosy hainu tanakama. Isn't Rabbi Yosy just repeating the same thing as the tanakama? What's the machlokes here? Ella, maybe let's suggest that Rabbi Yosy is commenting on the first halach. It says achla mitoch harchava v'shalemes ma shenehenis. So maybe the case was achla mitoch harchava v'shalemes ma shenehenis. Maybe what it means is that he was standing on the street and he stuck his head into the side. The Tanakama says you pay ma shenehenis, which would be consistent with Shmuel's halach. And Rabbi Yosy says ein daka lechel ala halach, and therefore it would be chayiv. Let's suggest that the machlokes here is about the case of machzeres. To the comments of our, I'm sorry. So the Rishonim talk about that. So ein daka has different degrees. If it's totally out of character, it would be Karen. And according to Rashi, it literally means ein daka. Tosha speaks out that according to Rashi, this Gemara reads much better, exactly because of what you said. But we're using ein daka. It's not mamish a crazy thing to do, but it's not norm to go there. Therefore, it should be considered chambers or yochid. So it's a very good point that you brought up there, because the Rishonim struggle with this, and of course, it's much more geschmack to read the Gemara according to Rashi. So Zok the Gemara el machzeres ikbenayu. The case of mitoich rechava doesn't mean that the food was mitoich rechava. It means the animal was in the rechava, the food was on the side, and the animal stuck its head over. So Rabbi Yosy, you would hold you pay mashen hennis, meaning like Shmuel, meaning it's considered Rishus Harabim. Machzeres, so the Tanakama savar machzeres nami mishalom mashen hennis. Rabbi Yosy savar mishalom mishmasha zika. Rabbi Yosy is commenting. You said mitoich rechava mishalom mashen hennis. I hold like Rav that it's mishalom mishmasha zika because he's not eating. The case is not where he's eating from the Rishus Harabim. He's actually eating from this side. So now we seemingly have a machlokes tanoim if this exact case of machzeres is chayver. Not so you do not have a raya. The chula alma machzeres ikar avika shmuel. You can hold either way. This is not a question of machzeres. This is a whole different shaila. The shaila is shein mechuyev b'rishus harabim. We have programmed to their head shein not chayver b'rishus harabim. Shein is only mechuyev in the rishus hanizik. Why is that? Because it says ubir b'steyacher. That's not so posh. Who said that we're extracting the right information from ubir b'steyacher. Mar savar ubir b'steyacher v'loy b'shus harabim. One mandamar holds that shein has to be b'shus hayochid, not a b'shus harabim. The way we understand it, and that's why achal mutech archava, you pay mashin hennis. There's no chiyuv shein. But maybe Rabbi Yosy and Yehuda hold umar savar ubir b'steyacher v'loy b'shus hamazik. It's just trying to say that the only time you're potter from shein is if it was in the rishus hamazik itself. But if it was in rishus harabim, you would be chayav for shein. Break the Gemara. I don't need a pasuk of ubir b'stei acher to tell me that if the damage occurred in my own rishus, in the mazik rishus, that the mazik should be potter. Pasuk, the logic tells you that. Rishus hamazik lema perich b'shusi, my boy. Rishus hamazik. If you put your pears in my property and my animal eats your pears, of course I'm not mechuyev. What business do you have putting your pears into my property? I don't need a pasuk of ubir b'stei acher to tell me that rishus hamazik a potter. So how is this time going to learn ubir b'steyacher? Ela de ilfa Reb Oishia ikebenayu. We had a case of ilfa Reb Oishia, where you're walking down the street with a basket on your back, and some animal jumps in and takes that food. Or there's two animals walking side by side. One animal had a basket on the top of him with food, and one animal leans over and eats from the other basket. The Gemara, the Wheeler said that's for sure a case of shame. It's for sure a case of chiyuv, right? What right do you have to go into my basket? The Gemara talked, maybe it was Karen, but if it was kefetzes, but if it wasn't kefetzes, it was clearly considered chain. Maybe not. Maybe this wouldn't be considered chain. So maybe Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Elazar would say that that's considered chain, and maybe the Tanakama would hold that it's not considered chain because they argue on Ilfa and Rabbi Yosy, and they hold it since it wasn't the Rosh Hashanah, it would be part. Okay, Gavaltic. Hakelev Vagdi.
Comes down to Tziddur Rishus Harabim from shame. That's
That's the machlokes between who and who. Rav and Shmuel. Everybody else Tziddur Rishus Harabim is considered Rishus Yochid. The question is it also considered Rishus Yochid that if an animal's in the Rishus Harabim and it just leans over? Right? That was the machlokes Rav and Shmuel. But everybody holds the Tziddur Rishus Harabim. If the animal went into the Tziddur Rishus Harabim, everyone holds it would be chai. Even though it's not mamash rishus hayochid, it's sort of public property, but lagabi shein is considered private because people put stuff there. Okay, hakela v'agadi. You had a dog or you had a goat. Shekavtu, they were on a roof. So let's say you have a building that's next door to your neighbor's vegetable patch, and your kelev and your gadi were on your roof. It jumped off your roof and it jumped onto the neighbor's property, a story below, and they were kalim there and they smashed the kalim. So the halach is mishalem nezek shalem. This is regal. This is the normal way of dogs and goats to jump off roofs, and therefore what they're going to land on, they'll break. It was incumbent upon you to make sure that your animals are restrained and they won't be able to jump on your neighbor's kalim, and therefore you chayiv nezek shalem. This is not karen. This is considered regal. Rashi told it the regal. Okay, now we have a case that we learned before. Hakelav shenotol charara. A kelev that took a burning hot harara, v'halach legadish, and it went to a gadish, and he put it down on the gadish as it's going to eat it. Achal harara, it ate the harara. That's a classic case of shame. But the hidlak gadish, now it lit the gadish on fire. So the halach is al harara misham nezek shalem, because that's a classic case of shame. But al gadish misham chati nezek, we're going to have to see why. We've already discussed this before. We had a tat to say that it's chayiv because of tzroiros. It's koichai, and it's speaking where he didn't put it directly down on the gadish, put it near the gadish, and it went. It was koichai. That was one shot we had. We had another shot to say that it was keren. It wasn't the normal way of doing things. We had two shatim earlier in the Gemara we discussed. Zok the Gemara. Like I want to finish in those stuff because we only have 3 minutes left.
The charud itself, or on the charud was the
I don't know, but whatever it had the ability to ignite. It had the ability to ignite this plant, this gadish. Taima the kafzu. The whole reason why they're chayiv is because they jumped, and that's the norm. Hanaflu, what if the animals didn't jump? They fell off. There was an oinus here. They fell off and they broke kalim. The halacha is pater would be pater. Why? Alma, you see from here, Kasavar, the Tana holds, this started off as a pshia because leaving your animals unattended on that roof lends itself that they're going to jump off the roof and they're going to break things. So there was a pshia there. But Lamaisa, that peril didn't occur. They fell off the roof. So v'sayfe ba'inus. So you see it's potter, because since you're only chayv if they jumped and not if they fell, you see the minute chilasiv b'pshiv v'sayv b'bainis is potter. Tanya Amayoti. We actually have another brayso that supports this. Chilas b'pshia, the Sefer Bainis is pater. Hakelim v'agdisha kavtim meroisha gag v'shavur shakelim mishalom nizek shalom. To hear the brayso b'feirish says it, we didn't have to be medayikid naflu p'turin. So you see clearly that chilas b'pshia, the Sefer Bainis is pater. Zok Gemara, this works out perfectly if that's what you hold. Beautiful, you have a right from the price. There is a mandam who holds so how do you explain this price that says that if the animals fell off the roof, he's potter? Michael Meimar. I'll tell you the answer. When animals jump off a roof, if there are kalim right alongside the wall, they're going to overjump them and they're not going to damage it. But if they fall off, they're going to go straight down and they'll damage kalim that are right up against the wall. So the case was that there were kalim right up against the wall, which means there was not a tchilas of pshia. Because even if our animals were going to jump, that area was clear. They would have never damaged anything. So therefore, if they would have jumped, which is the peril that I as an owner am responsible for, is mitigated because there's nothing in their path if they would jump. And therefore, so this is tchilase ba'onos, v'soifa ba'onos, because I didn't do anything wrong and the animals fell. That's why it's part. There are certain times there's cases where it would be chayiv, even if it fell, even if you hold tchilase b'pshia v'soifa ba'onos is pater. Why? If it was a very weak wall. So therefore, they were not protected from falling. I don't understand. Mind you, why is it chilas b'pshia? The boy lay lasuki daita the nafal archi. You tell me the pshia is that since there's a weak gate around the roof, I had to be concerned that it would fall. So it's chilas b'pshia. But you know what? Soif nafal archi. Lamaisa that didn't happen. They fell off, but the wall never broke. The nafal inu and they fell. So therefore, chilas b'pshia the soif b'aynesu. This is a case of tchilas b'pshia, v'seifa b'aynos. So it should be potter if you hold that it's potter. It was a very narrow wall, which means it was very easy for the animal to fall off, even if it wouldn't have broken. So therefore, it's tchilas b'pshia, the seifa b'pshia, because there was a danger that the animal could climb up on the gate, but it would be a very narrow gate and it would slip off. So there was a peril of nefila as well. So tchilas b'pshia, v'seifa b'pshia. Taner Rabbanan. Let me just finish the daf and then we'll talk. No, we'll answer. Tandur Nakelev Bagdi. You have a dog and a goat. Shedolgu mimata lamayla. Turin. So our Mishnah is talking about where they're on a roof and they jump down. That's the derech. But if they were on the floor and they jumped up, they will be potter. Milamayla lamata chayav. However, an adam who's mud la'olam v'tanagoil, who's the derech for a tanagoil to jump up, shedolgu bein milamayla lamata bein milamata lamayla chayavin. Correct the Gemara. I v'tanya kelev agdisha dolgu bein milamayla lamata bein milamata lamayla turin. We learned that it's potter in both ways. The Gemara Papa, you know why it was potter when the dog was jumping down or when the gdi was jumping down? Because they each did it in a way that was not normal for them. The apach mep, they actually did things differently. A goat climbs down differently than a dog. A dog normally claws its way down. And in this case, Kalbab is Kira. The dog just jumped down, which is not typical of how a dog jumps down. The Gadi B'Shricha. The Gedi normally just jumps down, and here the Gedi clawed its way down. So they both did things that were not normal. If they did something that wasn't normal, that should be Karen. It should be Chayiv Chatinezek. So Potter means Shalom, Chayiv, Chayovin B'Chatinezek. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be Mamshech. Tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem. So it's not a pshia. No, that's not a pshia. No, but that's not a pshia. When I throw something off a roof, I'm not being negligent. I've damaged it already. Damage. We look at the damage as if it had already occurred. You know, there's a very big difference between leaving an unsafe situation and actually throwing something off a roof where it's destined to break.
One social effect.
Depends who's here for Shabbos. I hear. Come on, so what do you think?
What's the chief?
But that's a good horse, it's a good child. Sorry?
Was it the TF Merkosutzah?
It's a very narrow fence, so it's normal for the animals to climb up on top of the fence. So if it's a breite wand, so then it's not a pshia, an animal's not gonna fall off. But if it's like a chain link fence and the animal's gonna climb on top of it to play there, it's very likely that they're gonna slip off. Good.